Hello everyone, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. My name is Shubham Sagar, and in today's daily news analysis, we'll be taking 5 articles of Hindu and Indian Express from 9th August 2024. If we talk about the first article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 19, and here we'll be talking about Waqf Amendment Bill 2024. What are the controversies associated with this particular bill? Some people are calling it anti-minority or divisive. We'll be having a look at that. If we talk about the second article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 6, One Nation, One Election, what are the different or how many number of constitutional amendments would be needed if government wants to make this particular policy of One Nation, One Election a reality. So we'll be having a look at that as well. If we talk about the third article of the day, which is on Hindu page number 10, very fascinating article related to renewable energy projects versus conservation of Great Indian Bustard. So we'll have a detailed look at that, and then we'll try to also solve 2 prelims questions on that particular article. If we talk about the fourth article of the day, which is on Hindu page number 12, and here we'll be talking about Himalayan towns, how much increase in population they have witnessed in the last 10-12 years, and how it is impacting something known as ecological carrying capacity, on which UPSC has already asked a question in mains. If we talk about the last article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 15, doing well on well-being. Here we'll talk about a correlation between health expenditure and poverty. Once we are done with these 5 articles, we'll solve 5 prelims practice question and 1 mains practice question, because as we have discussed earlier, practice makes a man as well as a woman perfect. So let's get started. If we talk about the first article of the day, a very sensitive issue which has to be dealt with in a sensitive manner. Proposed changes to Waqf Law. So what is this Waqf property? We have to understand some key terms here. Different kind of questions can be asked in pre as well as mains. So Waqf Amendment Bill has been proposed, and some people are saying that this is anti-minority or this is divisive in nature. We will not go into the political so-called gimmicks, which some political experts says. We will not go into the political connotation of this article. We'll just try to understand the meaning. What is happening? What was the earlier Waqf Law? What are the proposed changes? How it is going to impact the earlier Waqf Law? So we'll try to understand the keywords here. What is this Waqf property as well? So previous questions related to Indian society, social justice, secularism has been asked in mains. And they can ask you even what is Waqf property. They can ask you different terms also. So what is the context here? Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 has been referred to a joint committee of parliament following its tabling by Union Minister Kiran Rijiju. So it was tabled in parliament. So much criticism happened. Opposition parties said that this is unconstitutional in nature, anti-minority, divisive, and that's why it has been sent to joint committee for further review. This is the basic context. The bill seeks to amend the Waqf Act of 1995. So let's say there is Right to Information Act. There is Right to Education Act. So Right to Information Act 2005, Right to Education Act 2009. So these are original acts, and then there will be amendment on it. Similarly, Waqf Act of 1995 is the original act, and this is the particular amendment bill on that particular act. And again, Waqf Act of 1995 also traces its origin to an act which was passed in 1910s. Again, you don't need to go there. Just understand that bill is amending Waqf Act 1995, introducing significant changes in the governance and regulation of Waqf properties. Now, what is the basic concept of Waqf property? We have to understand these are key terms because it is continuously in use. So they can ask you what is a Waqf property. So a Waqf is a personal property given by Muslims for religious, charitable or private purposes. And who is the owner of this property? God. According to them, the owner is God. And once a property has been deemed to be a Waqf property, the status cannot be reversed. Now you will see when we'll talk about the amendments, the status can be reversed now. Again, there is a Waqf board. There is a state board which will be looking into the issues. There is a state tribunal. So there are certain changes which has been made there, and that's why people from the minorities, they are little bit miffed about this particular amendment bill. Not little bit, more than little bit miffed about this particular amendment bill. So Waqf can be established through a deed orally or by long-term use for religious or charitable purposes. So you have determined a land to be a Waqf land orally. Then it will be used for religious or charitable purposes, and once declared, the Waqf status of a property is irreversible. So these are some key attributes related to Waqf property. So now key amendments proposed in the bill. Section 3A, you don't need to remember each and every section. Just understand what was the original Waqf property and what are the amendments proposed. So Section 3A introduces a requirement that Waqf properties must be lawfully owned and capable of being transferred or dedicated by the owner. So earlier we were saying that if a Waqf property is deemed as such, the status, the Waqf status cannot be reversed. But they are saying that no, we can transfer this land, we can dedicate this land to somebody else. This is Section 3A. Section 3C Clause A is saying that government property identified as Waqf before or after the Act's commencement, if there is a government property and that has been allocated as a Waqf land for charitable or religious purposes, this particular section is saying that no, it will not be deemed as Waqf property if it is a government land. Again, you can see they're trying to change the status of the Waqf land. So when we're looking into sections 3C2, so it is empowering the government via the collector to determine if the property given as Waqf is government land or not. In current scenario, there is a tribunal which is looking into the issue. Now the collector will be looking into the issue. So in a way, they are saying that this is undermining the status of the current tribunal, which is comprising majorly, if not all, of the minority people. So all these things are certain apprehensions cast by the people. Audit pass, the central government is given authority to direct audits of any Waqf property at any time. So presumption and redefinition of Waqf property. The bill assumes that some government land is incorrectly deemed Waqf property, requiring government intervention. And that's why they were continuously saying in the previous section that if there are some government lands which are deemed as Waqf property, they can be taken away. So Waqf status will not be irreversible in that scenario. Hope you're understanding some part of it. You don't need to go into the nitty-gritties of this article. Just understand the key aspect, irreversible aspect, how it is changed to being reversible. Tribunal aspect, how now collector will be playing a part as well. So Waqf board, state-appointed bodies acts as custodian of Waqf properties. And these separate Waqf boards are there for Shia and Sunni communities. Power include administrating properties or recovering lost properties, etc., etc. Focus on the keywords here. Disputes are handled by a Waqf tribunal constituted by the state government. But now, collector will come into picture. Bill proposes allowing non-Muslim CEO and adding at least 2 non-Muslim members to state Waqf board. Again, this is also a major contention. Why are you adding non-Muslim CEO to a institution which is mainly Muslim in nature, Islamic in nature? So this is also a bone of contention which has been raised by different political parties. So what are the points of contention here? Altering the process of determining Waqf property, introducing stricter ownership criteria, redefining the composition of Waqf board where you are introducing non-Muslim people. These have sparked controversy, particularly among opposition party and minority communities. And again, religion is a very sensitive issue, which should be dealt in a very sensitive manner. So these stakeholders argue that amendments could undermine the autonomy and religious rights of the Muslim community. And that's why this particular bill has been sent to the joint committee. So what is the conclusion here? The Waqf Amendment Bill represents a significant shift in governance and regulation of Waqf properties in India, moving control from community-led Waqf board to state governments. And under that, you have collectors who will be playing a major role in this newly introduced Amendment Bill. So the bill's referral to a joint committee of parliament suggests that its provision will be subject to further scrutiny and debate with potential implications for the balance between state control and religious autonomy in India. And again, I will reiterate the fact, religion is a very sensitive issue for any community and it should be dealt in a very sensitive manner. If we talk about the second article of the day, so there are some keywords here in this particular article. One keyword is one nation, one election. Other keyword is Article 356. Third keyword is amendment. So we should be knowing about these keywords. Especially the most important of all these 3 keywords is one nation, one election. It has continuously been in news. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sir has continuously advocated for it. So we'll try to look at the positive aspects of one nation, one election. But since we are preparing majorly from the point of view of UPSC, so we'll also try to look at the negative aspects. What are the negative aspects of one nation, one election? So and again, if we talk about the simultaneous election, mains questions have been asked and questions even can be asked in pre as well, UPSC pre as well. So what is the context here? Indian government is considering up to 80 constitutional amendments. This is a very big number for implementing one nation, one election policy. But they have also said that they will not be amending Article 356. So if you know what is Article 356, you can post it in the comment section. What does Article 356 deals with? And again, at the end, once we are done with 5 articles, we'll be solving 5 prelims practice questions. And I have reiterated it in the previous DNAs also that please tell me your marks, how much you're getting out of those 5 prelims questions. 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 2 out of 5 or whatever. So the proposed amendments will involve changes to sections concerning the duration of Lok Sabha and State Assembly. First of all, what is one nation, one election? That means you have 28 states, let's say, 8 union territories in India. So all these states, most of these states if not all these states, and Lok Sabha election will be happening at the same time. Why? There is a need for all these elections, or most of these elections, if not all, happening at the same time. Because there is a saying in our country, or there is a saying outside also, that India is always in election mode. So when you're always in election mode, there is something known as model code of conduct, which is proposed by ECI, Election Commission of India. And when that model code of conduct is there, MCC, there are certain things which state or central government cannot do, and it hampers the progress of the state or India as a country as a whole. And that's why we should have minimum number of elections. Country should not always be in election mode. That does not help the development per se of the country, and that in a way impedes the development of the country. That is a major argument. Plus, so much money is involved when you are having elections multiple times. So these are the arguments which has been proposed why we should have one nation, one election. But there are issues related to this as well. So Union Minister of State for Law and Justice, this discussion was going on in Parliament. Arun Meghwal, he said that Article 356, which deals with precedent rule, it will not be amended. It has not been proposed. Amendment to Article 356 has not been proposed. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, that is one nation, one election. So one nation, one election refers to holding simultaneous election for Lok Sabha and all state legislative assembly in India. But the problem here is, please try to understand. So you are having election for like 5 years, and let's say a state government falls after 2 years. Then what will happen? The next state government will be for only 3 years, and then you will have simultaneous election. The problem here is, if you are having the next state government for 3 years, many of the political leaders will not agree to it because they invest a lot of money, and it's a harsh reality that they want to get back that money, earn back that money in 5 years. If you are electing them for 3 years, they will not get back that money. And again here, opaqueness in political funding, other issues come. We have talked about these issues even in live videos of our news of the day. You can see that particular video which is related to opaqueness in political funding, one of the biggest issues plaguing in India. So this is an issue. What happens if a government falls, state government falls? So when you're talking about one nation, one election, so in this scenario, let's say government is there for, state government is there for 3 years. You cannot elect it for remaining 2 years, because again, then the political leaders will be like, no, we are investing so much money, will not be able to get back that amount of money in 2 years. So there are issues. Hope you're understanding the issues involved here. And again, there are other issues also, which we'll talk about in few moments from now. So one nation, one election, what is the objective? To streamline electoral process, reduce the cost of elections, enhance governance by ensuring that elections do not disrupt administrative functions. In India, Lok Sabha and state assembly elections are held at different times because there are so many states in India, right? And you have one Lok Sabha election every 5 years. This often leads to multiple election cycles, because of which India always remains in, or most of the time remain in, election mode. So what are the benefits of one nation, one election? So first of all, reduce the financial burden. If you are having lesser number of elections every year, so lesser burden on Election Commission of India, lesser burden on exchequer, the people who are paying taxes. Minimize election-related disruptions in governance and development work. We have talked about MCC, Model Code of Conduct, implemented by Election Commission of India, which leads to state governments and central government not implementing certain schemes. So again, if you are having lesser elections, these kind of disruptions will be less. More stable and predictable political environment will be there, because you know after 5 years you'll be having elections. So now these are benefits. What are the negative impacts? We have talked about one issue related to one nation, one election. What happens if a state government or central government falls or loses majority before 5 years? Then what will be the scenario? Second issue is, so there was a survey which was done, and that survey showed that if you're having Lok Sabha and legislative election at the same time, in that scenario, there is a tendency among people to vote for the same political party. So, and this tendency goes away when you're having Lok Sabha and legislative election at the same time. Let's take an example. Let's say in Odisha, you're having Lok Sabha and legislative election at the same time. There's a very high tendency that if people are voting for BJP in Lok Sabha, they'll be voting for BJP in legislative assembly as well. This has been seen as a trend. So hope you're understanding what are the different predicaments or different issues related to one nation, one election as well. So these are some issues. The benefits are many, but there needs to be discussion regarding what happens if a government falls before 5 years and political tendencies, which we have talked about. So India has experienced simultaneous elections in the past, but the practice was disrupted by the dissolution of state assemblies, which we have talked about, and changes in political landscape leading to separate election cycles. Proposal is part of the broader electoral reforms aimed at improving the efficiency and effectiveness of India's democratic processes. If we talk about the third article of the day, a very interesting article which is related to, there are again different terms here, like what is just transition concept and Great Indian Bustard. And again, a very fascinating concept, just transition. Like we are talking about transition to low carbon, we are talking about sustainable projects, we are talking about moving to renewable energy projects. And here, nobody should be left behind. That means that we have to take care. If you are moving to low carbon, what is happening to different people who are getting affected by it? So there is a issue related to this just transition concept as well. That more or less we are focusing on humans, we are not focusing on non-humans. We are not, when we are talking about renewable energy projects, we are talking about just transition concept, we are talking about humans, how they'll be impacted by it. But what about Great Indian Bustard? What will be the impact of these projects on Great Indian Bustard? So again, a very interesting concept. We'll try to have a look at it. So hopefully after this particular article is done, you will understand the concept known as just transition concept. So previous year questions related to endangered species, critically endangered has been asked. So we should be knowing about it. These days, UPSC is not directly asking questions on endangered or critically endangered, but we should be knowing about it because if they have once asked, they can always ask later. So what is the context here? And it's not only about endangered, critically endangered. There are very interesting concepts. They can even ask you that MK Ranjit Singh and others versus Union of India is related to what? Just like they have asked right to privacies, KS Puttaswamy judgment is associated with what? So we should be knowing about it that this is a conflict, or this addresses a conflict between renewable energy projects and protection of Great Indian Bustard. So as we have talked about just transition concept, that we are moving to low carbon, we are transitioning to sustainable projects. So nobody should be left behind. And here when we are saying that nobody should be left behind, we are mainly focusing on humans. What about non-humans? When you are like even making or creating renewable energy projects, are you taking care of Great Indian Bustard, whether they will be impacted by it or not? So the major criticism related to just transition concept is when you're saying nobody is left behind, somebody is indeed you are leaving behind, and those somebodies are non-human entities like Great Indian Bustard. So let's deal with this article and you will understand what I'm talking about here. So what are the key arguments which are being presented here? Supreme Court acknowledged the right against adverse impacts of climate change. However, the decision has generated mixed reactions that yes, there are adverse impacts of climate change. But many people are saying that it inadequately protects endangered biodiversity like Great Indian Bustard. And again, just transition concept, you have an idea so you can understand. We are talking about climate change, but more or less humans are worrying about themselves more rather than worrying about non-human entities like Great Indian Bustard as well. So what is this just transition concept? The concept of just transition emerged in 1970s to protect workers affected by environmental regulations. So you are worrying about climate change and everything. You are bringing some regulations that can impact workers in different ways, that can impact their salary, etc. Just transition concept is that nobody should be left behind, not even these workers. But again, workers, humans. What about not humans? It was later integrated into climate change discussions, emphasizing the equitable distribution of burdens and benefits of decarbonization. So let's say developed countries, they are doing decarbonization. So even developing countries are forced to do that. But again, there are common but differentiated responsibilities. So we will do some amount of carbonization because historically we have always lagged behind. So all these things, all these kind of issues are just transition concepts that nobody should be left behind. But more and more you're reading about it, the more and more you're understanding the human concept related to it. The Paris Agreement of 2015 further cemented this concept. Now, what are the basic concept here? What is the basic issue here? This just transition has traditionally focused on human communities, particularly vulnerable groups like workers in carbon-intensive industries, indigenous people, women, children, and minorities. The question here is why we are not applying this just transition concept to non-human entities like wildlife or ecosystem, which includes Great Indian Bustard as well. So Supreme Court has an opportunity to use the just transition framework to resolve the conflict. In this case, by doing this, the court could ensure that the needs of decarbonization and biodiversity protection are balanced rather than being treated as opposing interests. And again, the core attribute here is just transition should be extended beyond human communities, right? This approach would involve considering the protection of Great Indian Bustard as an integral part of climate action rather than an obstacle to it. So you are talking about renewable energy projects. Great. Why don't you do the underground power transmission line? That will also not like, there are many cases related to Great Indian Bustard. They are critically endangered, on the verge of extinction. And these power lines, sometimes they get electrocuted by it. So if you're doing underground power transmission line, it will impact positively the population of Great Indian Bustard. without compromising renewable energy development. The case could set a precedent by expanding the concept of just transition to include non-human entities such as endangered species or ecosystem. Hope you're understanding this just transition concept. Very fascinating concept once you read about it. Now, Great Indian Bustard. Critically endangered species not only found in Rajasthan but even in some parts of Gujarat, and in smaller groups you can find them in other states like Maharashtra, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. But don't forget Rajasthan and Gujarat. Species faces several risks. And what are these risks? Collisions, power line collisions. We have talked about it. That's why we're talking about underground power transmission lines, hunting habitat loss, slow reproduction rate. They are not as fast as Indian or Chinese, with due respect. The reaching maturity in 3-4 years, the bird survival is precarious. And protection status, critically endangered. Wildlife protection, Schedule 1. So when you read about Wildlife Protection Act 1972, there are 6 schedules. Schedule 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 and 2, maximum protection, 3 and 4, lesser protection. And then in Schedule 5 and 6, in some of these schedules, vermins are there, which can be culled, which can be killed, right? And then I think Schedule 6 is related to plants, which cannot be grown. So all these schedules are important. UPSC has asked questions on it. So do revise all these 6 schedules of WPA 1972. Conservation efforts, species recovery program under MOEFCC, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. All these efforts have been taken to protect Great Indian Bustard, artificial hatching, national bustard recovery plans and Project Great Indian Bustard. If we talk about the 4th article of the day, why Himalayan towns need a different kind of development. So there was a question asked by UPSC in mains related to ecological carrying capacity. So if you talk about these Himalayan towns, urbanization has increased, tourism has increased, which is putting a lot of strain on the limited resources there, flora and fauna included. And there has to be a limit on how much tourism can be allowed. And we will have a talk on this along with other aspects. So why Himalayan towns need a different kind of development? So again, a question in 2019 related to how can mountain ecosystem be restored from the negative impact of development initiatives and tourism. See, understand one thing. There was a scheme of government which was known as NAPCC, National Action Plan on Climate Change. Under that, there were 8 missions. How many missions? 8 missions. And those 8 missions, there was a mnemonic which you can use to remember them. The mnemonic is Sehwag HK. Sehwag, we know, Virendra Sehwag. So, solar mission first. E is National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency, E. H is National Mission for Sustainable Habitat. W is Water Mission. A is National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture. G is Green India Mission. H is National Mission for Sustaining Himalayan Ecosystem, which we'll be dealing with the article we are reading now. And K is National Mission for Strategic Knowledge on Climate Change. So these last 2 missions, National Mission for Sustaining Himalayan Ecosystem and National Mission for Strategic Knowledge on Climate Change, these are very important missions related to how you can tackle things which are going on in Himalayan towns. So Indian Himalayan Range, IHR is the name given. Under this, there will be certain states and union territories which will come, and we have to have a look at that. 40% urban growth from 2011 to 2021. These days, there is a trend also. Summer is there, so let's go to Uttarakhand or Himachal. Let's go to southern India, Western Ghats. So because of this, and let's not only go there, let's settle there. Work from home is there, so we will work from there. So all these things are leading to urban growth, and it is leading to significant environmental and infrastructural challenges that require a tailored approach to urbanization. So what is happening in this IHR town? So again, we have to pay attention to abbreviation because this is the world of abbreviation. So IHR is Indian Himalayan Range. And let's have a look at this particular map first. So IHR, Indian Himalayan region, 2 union territories and 11 states of India. Pay attention here. They can ask you that which of the following state is part of IHR, Indian Himalayan region, and they can give you that Meghalaya is a part of it. And you will feel like, no. Means Meghalaya does not lie directly in the Himalayan region. No, there are certain parts. So Meghalaya is a part of IHR and you have to pay attention to that. So be in the lookout or have a, closer look at this particular map because you have to understand and remember. Rather, this is actually, you have to memorize certain states and you have to do it because questions can be framed from this. So Himalayan towns, all these towns like Guwahati, Shillong, Shimla, very popular towns, they're struggling with sanitation, solid and liquid waste management because of too much urbanization, too much pressure on their limited resources. Planning institution often use unsuitable models copied from plain areas. And limited capacities there we are talking about. City governments lack human resources by nearly 75%. Urban expansion into peripheries encroaches the village areas, open spaces and watershed as seen in Srinagar and Guwahati rather. So in Srinagar, land use changes between 2000 and 2020. In these 20 years, what has happened is there is 75.58% increase in built-up real estate, while water bodies reduced by almost 25%, and nearly 90% of liquid waste goes untreated into water bodies. So all these things are happening because of haphazard urbanization, unplanned urbanization, and these are not urban areas of plains. Here we are talking about urban areas of hilly regions, which are even more vulnerable. So we have to be very, very mindful of what we are doing in these areas. And again, this map is important. You have to have a look at this particular map multiple number of times. So why is this happening? Urbanization, high intensity tourism, unsustainable infrastructure are all contributing to it. Climate variation, rising temperature, like all these, climate change, global warming, all these are contributing to whatever is happening in these Himalayan towns. Tourism in the IHR region, growing at an annual rate of around 8% from last 10 years or 11 years, 2013 to 2023, often leads to replacement of eco-friendly infrastructure with inappropriate and harmful constructions. You may have seen ads also where they are saying that they have made this particular project, or different real estate people, they are going to Himalayan regions to build this and that. And again, so many landslides and all these things are happening because of all these haphazard urbanization, rapid urbanization, which is helping no one. So inadequate waste management damaging rural means natural resources. All these factors, poorly designed roads, inappropriate and harmful constructions, illegal constructions, are impacting or playing a crucial role in altering the ecological carrying capacity of these vulnerable areas. So what needs to be done? You need to have like a bottom-up approach involving local communities. So generally we follow a top-down approach. In most of the areas, we follow a top-down approach. And what happens when you are following a bottom-up approach? You are consulting with the local communities who know more about those areas than the people who are lying at the top periphery. So local community should be involved. Bottom-up approach is the way to go. Towns must be mapped with layers identifying geological and hydrological vulnerabilities to prevent infrastructure erosion from climate-induced disasters. Finance Commission should include a separate chapter on urban financing for the IHR. So urban financing is fine, but urban areas which are located in Himalayan region, for that there should be a separate chapter, urban financing for IHR, considering the high cost of urban services and lack of industrial corridors. Intergovernmental transfer, whatever money you are giving to urban local bodies, that should be increased from 0.5% to 1% of GDP, which should include the urban areas of IHR as well. A shift towards robust, eco-centric urban planning processes with public participation is essential for sustainable urban futures in the IHR. You can forget everything in this slide. Just remember some keywords. Local community should be involved. Bottom-up approach should be followed. Then intergovernmental transfer, which is happening to these urban local bodies, that has to be increased. And Finance Commission should have a separate chapter on these urban financing, which is happening in the urban areas for the IHR as well. So these are some keywords which you can keep in mind. Rest all you can forget. Don't worry about it. Now, what needs to be done? So we have talked about this particular project. Green India Mission was under NAPCC 8 missions, which we have talked about. I have given you the mnemonic also, Sehwag HK. So Green India Mission, National Mission for Sustaining Himalayan Ecosystem, that is one of the 8 missions. Green India Mission was another. Then there is Indian Himalayas Climate Adaptation Program, Secure Himalaya. So this particular slide is important from both pre as well as mains perspective. So when you're reading about Secure Himalaya, you have to pay attention that Indian government is involved here. Along with that, UNDP is involved here. So these are some keywords which can be asked in prelims as well. Because in prelims, environment matters a lot. Because for both UPSC, like CSE and IFS also, Forest Service, you have the same prelims. So environment contribution is very high in prelims. So you should be paying attention to these keywords. If we talk about the last article of the day, again, interesting article, which is drawing a correlation between health expenditure and poverty. And a very interesting article. Plus, it is also saying that Ayushman Bharat, what role it has played in minimizing the impact of health expenditure. Earlier, what used to happen was that there is a saying even in our home that don't fall ill, because if you're falling ill, if any member of our family is falling ill, there is a very high probability that this out-of-pocket expenditure, OP, can lead to a particular family going below poverty line, BPL. It has happened a lot in the past in many families. So again, there is a relationship, correlationship between health expenditure and poverty. And this article is a very optimistic article, which is establishing a correlationship between health expenditure and poverty. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a discussion on this particular article. So in order to enhance the prospect of social development, sound and adequate healthcare policies are needed, particularly in the fields of geriatric and maternal healthcare. So these kind of questions have been asked by UPSC in mains, and questions can be framed in pre as well related to similar concept. So what is the context here? The article Doing Well on Well-Being examines the progress made in reducing poverty and improving healthcare accessibility. So this article, what they are saying is, earlier, let's say, there are healthcare expenditure. Today also, there was healthcare expenditure earlier also. But let's say earlier, we were investing 40 rupees from our family. We were earning 100 rupees, 40% we were investing in healthcare. Now it has reduced. Although healthcare expenditure is increasing, but the percentage which it is taking of our income has reduced because of schemes like Ayushman Bharat. Hope you're understanding it. Once we are done with this article, the concept will be clearer. So what this article is saying, examines the progress made in reducing poverty and improving healthcare accessibility for the bottom 50% of India's population, particularly in the context of medical expenditure. Again, medical expenditure, how it is impacting your family's income or economic status, that's what this article is more or less dealing with. So using data from Household Consumption Expenditure Survey, HCES, the article highlights a significant decline in poverty since 2011-12. It explores how households cope with adverse shocks such as hospitalization expenses. So all these hospitalization expenses, how they are there, but that has not led to increase in poverty, which is a silver lining. So Ayushman Bharat, they are playing a crucial role. This particular scheme rather is playing a crucial role. Why? Even though healthcare expenditures have increased, poverty has not increased in that proportion. So Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Here there are certain keywords. When was it launched? It was launched in 2018. It is providing how much per family? 5 lakh per family. Are all Indian families eligible for it? No. There is a census which happens. Based on that, the families are decided. Again, which healthcare services? Secondary and tertiary healthcare services. Now the question here is, what is secondary healthcare services? What is tertiary healthcare services? What is primary healthcare services? So let's say my nose catches cold and butter or ghee is coming out from it. So I go to a hospital. So that is my first point of contact. That is a primary healthcare service, right? And they refer me to, let's say, Kolkata. So Kolkata is my secondary healthcare service. I will go there. And let's say Kolkata refers me to AIIMS Delhi. So that is my tertiary healthcare services. So I'm currently in Hyderabad, let's say. So, and my first point of contact is in Hyderabad. This is primary healthcare. I'm not eligible for money under Ayushman Bharat here. But if they are referring me to Kolkata, which is a second point of contact, there I'll be eligible for Ayushman Bharat. And they are referring me to AIIMS Delhi, tertiary, there I'll be eligible for Ayushman Bharat. Hope some things are clear related to secondary and tertiary healthcare. So again, coverage of 5 lakh per family for secondary and tertiary healthcare, second and third point of contact related to healthcare, including surgeries, medical treatments, daycare procedures, medicine and diagnostics. Funding, Ayushman Bharat. Who is providing how much? Center and state. So it's not like center is providing all the money. It's divided based on the condition of states, vulnerability of states. 60-40 for all states and UTs with their own legislature, 90-10 for northeast states which are very vulnerable when it comes to resources. Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, and 100% central funding for UTs without a legislature. So what are the UTs which has legislature? Union territories having legislature. If you know it, post it in the comment section or write your answer in the comment section. How many UTs, union territories are there in India which has a legislature? So nodal agency, who is administering this? Who is looking into how much money will be going to which particular family? So National Health Authority. And they are established as an autonomous entity under Society Registration Act, and they oversee the effective implementation of Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana in partnership with state government. State health agencies are there which are working under NHA. Report on Household Consumption Expenditure Survey. So what they are saying, and this is again an important point, you don't have to mug up all the points written here, just try to understand the important keywords. Decline in poverty levels since 2011-12 with a focus on bottom 50% of the population, which this PM Jan Arogya Yojana is majorly covering. Survey emphasized the vulnerability of households to economic shocks. Earlier, there used to be scenarios where if any member of your family is catching a very serious disease, you will go below the poverty line, but that is not happening now. Good fact. Not happening now mostly. You cannot justify it for all scenarios. So it reveals that proportion of household incurring hospitalization cost rose from 17% to 22%. So households which are having hospitalization cost, that is increasing. Rural households, they are also seeing an increase. But there is a but here. The analysis shows that for households experiencing hospitalization, ratio of health expenditure to overall household expenditure decreased. So earlier, let's say, they were spending 40% of their income earlier. Now they're spending 20% of their income. So income is increasing, household expenditure as a proportion is decreasing, and maybe PM Jan Arogya Yojana is playing a very crucial role in that in certain areas. So indicating improved affordability of healthcare. So for instance, in rural areas, this ratio dropped from 11.15% to 9.14% over 11 years. So again, let's try to rewind what we have discussed. Household expenditure, households, proportion of households which are having hospitalization cost or which are incurring hospitalization cost, that is increasing. But the amount of money, the percentage of money of the total income which they are spending now is lesser than what they used to spend, let's say 10 years earlier. So this is the basic concept of this particular article, core analysis of this particular article. So what is the conclusion? These findings underscore the positive impact of public health initiative like Ayushman Bharat Yojana, and again, more proper, like there has been some debates or criticism related to Ayushman Bharat Yojana. Proper implementation, more effective implementation of Ayushman Bharat scheme can be done, but whatever has been done up until now, it is posting a good pictures. It is giving us good figures and analysis. So initiative like Ayushman Bharat Yojana is playing a crucial role in improving healthcare access and reducing financial burdens for low-income families, particularly in rural areas. We have done the 5 articles. Now our work is to solve 5 prelims practice question and 1 mains practice question. And I will keep on saying it again and again in the previous DNA videos as well as this DNA video. Please post your marks in the comment section, how much you're getting out of 5. 0 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, whatever. First question is in front of you. Pause me because I will tell the answer and then you will not be able to solve the question. So, or the interest of yours will be lost in the question. So, with reference to the concept of just transition, the concept of just transition originated in 1970s. Let's say you are not very sure about it. Just read the question statements. Concept of just transition has been traditionally applied to both human and non-human entities. We have talked about this. Non-human entities not. That was the core idea behind when we're talking about this just transition article. So just eliminate third. Eliminate all options means involving 3. This is option elimination. This is how it works. So even if you are not knowing 1 and 2, you can still solve it if you are knowing for sure that third is wrong. So the answer is A, 1 and 2 only. Second question, Secure Himalaya project. Launched by MOEFCC in partnership with, when we are discussing about different initiatives related to IHR region and all those things. So we have talked about this. I've in fact even underlined that fact. The answer here is UNDP, United Nations Development Program. And again, this is a factual question. Even if you're getting it wrong, don't worry about it. But the previous question, you should have got this correct. Third question, Great Indian Bustard. Found exclusively in the state of Rajasthan. We have talked about it. Rajasthan, Gujarat and even some other states as well in smaller numbers. So first is wrong. Eliminate first. You're left with B and D now. So here, even if the question is little tougher than the first one. Critically endangered, second is correct. Now just check 4. Not schedule 2, schedule 1. So 4th is wrong and the answer is B, 2 and 3 only. Question number 4. Ayushman Bharat scheme, 5 lakh per family, entirely funded by central government for all states and union territories. Is it entirely funded? 60, 40, 90, 10. We're talking about that division, right? So second is wrong. Eliminate second. Again, if you are knowing that second is wrong, for sure you're getting the answer. That is C, 1 and 3 only. Go to question number 5. One nation, one election proposal. Solve this question. Most of you, you would have paused me, now unpause me, you would have not seen incorrect. You would have felt what are the statements which are correct? You would have written C. That is wrong. They're asking incorrect. None of these 2 statements are incorrect. So the answer is D, neither 1 nor 2. So now you can specifically tell me in the comment section whether you have read this incorrect word or not. Or whether you felt correct was you have taken it as the default correct. Because most of the people do that, and sometimes this 2 marks, 2.66 marks, because negative marking is involved, can make or break your prelims. So again, 5th question, have you read this incorrect word or not? You can post it in the comment section and also post your marks. So mains practice question related to Waqf Amendment Bill. So again, discuss the key provision of the bill and analyze the potential implications these amendments may have on the autonomy of Waqf board and right of minority communities. Here you can talk about Waqf Amendment Bill, what is a Waqf property, endowed for religious, charitable or private purposes, ownership, who is the owner of these Waqf property? God, Allah in their words. And again, what are the different amendments? Section 3A, 3C, what they are doing. Waqf property is deemed to be irreversible. It cannot be given to anybody else. It has to be used for charitable or religious purpose. All these things are being changed. Now the concept of earlier tribunal was there. Now collectors will be involved. All these points which we have discussed earlier. if there are government properties which has been deemed to be Waqf property, the whole thing will be reversed. But remember, Waqf properties, if they are designated as Waqf property, that whole concept is irreversible now. It is reversible according to the recent amendment. So all these points, all these things you have to talk about here. Audit powers. The bill grants central government authority to conduct audits of any Waqf property. Composition of Waqf board. Non-Muslim people, members will be included in the Waqf board, and minority communities having an objection to that. Political parties are having an objection to this particular point. So all these things you can talk about because they can ask you about different bills. This is in news. This has continuously been in news. Autonomy of Waqf board. What are the potential implications here? It is written that if you're having non-minority people, what will happen to the composition then? Rights of minority communities, are you compromising on that? And then government intervention. You are including collectors, you are giving government lands, you are talking about removing the status of Waqf. So all these things, whether too much government intervention is there or not. So all these are certain implications of the proposed amendments. And then you can conclude that this particular Waqf Amendment Bill represents a significant shift in the management and regulation of Waqf properties. And because there were so many oppositions, that's why it has been sent to Joint Committee. And as the bill undergoes further scrutiny by the Joint Committee, it will be crucial to balance the need for regulatory oversight with respect to religious and cultural autonomy of Waqf institutions. So again, the keywords which were related to the concept, what is Waqf? What is Waqf property? What are the recent amendments? Do keep it in mind because government policies and scheme is an integral part of GS2 plus Indian society and social justice is an integral part of GS1 when it comes to UPSC mains. So that's it for today's DNA Daily News Analysis. If you like the video, do like, share and subscribe. Take care. Be blessed. See you soon.